Well, I have to tell you, one of my favorite trends that is coming back is people going back to the office, but not in the way you'd expect, my friends. One of the things we have seen from the post-pandemic era has been the rise of co-working. It went down a little bit in 2022, 2023, but it's making a comeback according to the Wall Street Journal in so many ways. Not just co-working, but entrepreneurs and major companies renting out spaces throughout the country to bring people back to the office in many easy ways. And we have some great guests tonight to talk about this and break it down for us. We have Angie O'Grady, Natalie DeHart, and Mildred Antonetti from District Offices, a local co-working and commercial office space provider right here in DC. They know all about these trends. They've been seeing it. And thank you so much for joining us tonight on the live Zone Primetime, all of you, to help us break this down.
Thanks for having us.
So let me ask you all this. So we're seeing this trend. The Wall Street Journal has multiple articles out saying co-working is back, right? We're seeing more people come back to the office. And even companies like Amazon and Microsoft are no longer taking these long-term leases for whole office buildings. They're doing co-working. They're doing smaller options. What do you attribute this, Angie, to this rise in this new use of co-working and the resurgence of co-working generally?
So I think when COVID happened, we all had this narrative in our head that the traditional office would die. Well, it's not really what's happening. What we're seeing is that the office environment is actually evolving and maturing. And some of these big enterprises are realizing the value of an office that's flexible, that's turnkey, where there's no capital investment. And many times it's closer to the homes of the people that they're trying to attract to work for them. So all of those things combined make it a really good option for these bigger players as well as your smaller entrepreneurs.
And Natalie and Mildred, what do you attribute the evolution to? What are some of the things that you're seeing from your perspective of how these offices, including yours, are evolving to meet these needs?
I would say we do tailor a lot of our offering towards, helping people and supporting them, being able to bring like a whole workforce into, one of our spaces. So I would say, we definitely work on that a lot to make that happen. Angie, feel free to jump in here, but I would say that is basically what separates us and sets us apart.
Are you also seeing this whole rise? We're seeing entrepreneurs, for example, right? Those are major people. They're building startups. They're working independently. Maybe they work for a company, but they can't come into the office because they're not in the right location. Are you seeing a lot of entrepreneurs do this as well? And if so, what is the reason why they're coming back to the office?
Yeah, we are seeing a good amount of entrepreneurs come in. I would say it's pretty 50-50 when it comes to like businesses, consulting, whether it be larger companies or entrepreneurs. A lot of times it's to help with outsourcing other operational needs. So a lot of entrepreneurs, if you're just kind of starting a business, you have a startup, you don't necessarily want to have to then hire out for reception needs or fixing the coffee machine and things like that. So being able to come to a co-working space, you're kind of able to have a professional address, get all your mailing handled, get all your reception needs handled as well. And so you can just kind of focus on starting your business and getting to work.
And Angie, let me ask you this. What is the psychology that changes in people when they decide to go to a co-working space as opposed to staying remote? As we heard for years, remote work is fine. People can stay home. They don't need a physical office. What happens to their productivity when they go into a co-working space like yours?
I think the best part of having a co-working space is, one, you have that place to go. It's that routine of getting up, going to the office, and hopefully it's close to your home, so there's not a long commute involved. And then when you're there, you have other people. They may not work in your same sector. They certainly aren't working for your company, perhaps, but there are people that you can engage with that provide you with a level of energy, somebody to brainstorm with. Lots of times you find that somebody, two people every morning, they'll sit and have a cup of coffee just to start their day, to brainstorm, say good morning. And that really kicks off your day, helps you, bounce ideas off of somebody else, and really creates that sense of community. And then I think also, most importantly, when we go home, we're home. We can flip it off.
Yeah.
We can then say, all right, I'm home. Whereas when you're working at home in your bedroom or maybe in a private office at your home, you're still always living and work.
Yeah.
And sometimes it makes it really hard to draw that distinction. And having a really great co-working space makes all the difference.
Well, the line becomes blurred, exactly, but you kind of don't know where work ends and life begins. That's a great point. That's why I've done it over the years, because I just don't want to be stuck in my house. Now, Mildred and Natalie, let me ask you this one. So when people do decide to make that move and come in, for example, they may be having a private office, or they may be doing co-working. They may not know people, for example, to make those automatic connections. How would you suggest anybody that's going to start their co-working or their private office journey, how should they come into a space like yours and try to build those connections and leverage the resources that you all put out there?
Well, we do, first of all, we do host a lot of, community events every week, even definitely a couple times a month where, yes, they're not your colleagues directly, they don't work in the same company that you do, but
Right.
You can still make those connections. I would say make the best use out of the space, go grab your coffee in the morning, maybe have your breakfast in the community cafe, or, definitely participate in all these events, which we host for that, so that people can also build, strong relationships. Maybe it's not with your colleague directly, but it can turn into something, further down the line.
Right. And let me ask you this, Angie. So when looking at the decision between going with co-working, say an entrepreneur, or you're someone who's working for a company, and you have a budget, for example, how do you decide between co-working and a private office? What are some of the considerations that buyers, employees, and employers should make when they decide to make that decision?
Great question. So, co-working is ideal for a professional who's working remotely but wants access to that private environment. They're comfortable sitting in an open space. They're comfortable, having people hear their conversations, and probably, isn't someone that's on a Zoom call all day long, right? Whereas a private office is going to really work for that person that needs their own office, needs the privacy, needs a place where they can shut their door. And then also a really important consideration here in the Washington, D.C. area is if you're trying to qualify for your CBE or SAM.gov, getting on the SAM GSA schedule, those requirements many times say that you have to have a private office that is yours with a door that locks. And in that case, even a very small private office will check that box.
I didn't know that. So a little follow-up. So in terms of the security measures, are there certain things that buyers should be paying attention to when it comes to internet security or physical security when they're choosing a private office or a co-working space provider?
Absolutely. I'll jump on that one. So what I like to tell people is that we have made an extraordinary investment in our infrastructure on the technology side.
Nice.
It's, not a public coffee shop. You are behind your own VLAN. None of our other clients can see your files or what you're doing. So it's very secure, and we've taken great measures to ensure that, so that our clients, you could have a direct competitor sitting in our suite and it wouldn't matter. There would be no question about someone being able to see, what you're up to, who you're talking to, your emails, et cetera.
And you, Mildred and Natalie, you mentioned before about the certain offshoring or outsourcing items that entrepreneurs and companies are utilizing. What are some of the most popular items beyond just the physical space that your buyers and customers are utilizing to maybe have a hybrid experience, for example, but still have the ability to offshore those items?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I definitely think our mailing feature is a really big thing that a lot of clients utilize here. So depending on the needs of your business, you can either set up when you have an agreement with us. We can be really flexible and tailor ourselves to your needs. So whether that be you get notified of each letter that comes addressed to you every single day, we can do that upon arrival. And then from there, they can ask us, hey, can you scan that over to me, or can you forward it to this address?
Yeah.
And we're able to do that instantaneously. And then also if businesses kind of like more of a schedule, more of a routine of when to expect our email, we can also set that up to only do it maybe once a week or twice a week if you don't need a bunch of emails flooding your inbox. And so that's also something that a lot of clients our virtual clients as well really utilize.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I would even add on to that our conference rooms. A lot of people, maybe they don't even have an office. Maybe they just have mail services that Natalie just mentioned,
Yeah.
but have the impression, give their clients the impression that they do have an office where they meet. You can book our conference rooms on an hourly basis, the full day, the full week, however you need them really. And that, that really does help that as well.
So Angie, my final questions are going to be more about just any advice you have for first-time individuals that are trying this journey, right? So if there's someone out there that's getting ready to start, what is one of the biggest mistakes you've seen others make when they first decide to have a co-working or a private office that you would want other people to not repeat in the future so that they can have the best experience?
So I think you have to be careful, especially if you're in a private office, that you don't show up in a co-working space, walk to your office, shut the door, and sit there in isolation. You're not helping yourself in terms of the opportunity to interact with others. I think also really talking to the community manager, letting that community manager learn what's important to you. How can we help you? Who can we connect you with? What can we do? Because we know our clients and we're happy to connect you to anybody that we, have in this space that would be beneficial to you. I think of it like a networking membership to the chamber or something, right?
Yeah.
You get out of it what you put into it. So, being intentional about getting up from your desk every hour to walk around, have a cup of coffee, saying hi to somebody new. Co-working spaces are full of friendly people. They want to talk to people. That's why they're here. So there's nothing wrong with just introducing yourself. I'm new, or, I don't think I've met you. How are you? So utilize those resources that are at your fingertips for sure.
I love that. And for each of you, what is one trend that you're seeing in 2026 that's new, that you think is going to continue throughout co-working and just the future of work generally? And Angie, we can start with you if you want.
They're thinking. So I think we're seeing that work is a place that you want to come, right? It's a place that you can collaborate, interact with others, and that the traditional 8:30 to 5:30 hours are not set in stone like they once were, right? I had a father that worked for the U.S. government. He went to work every day from 8:30 to 5:30. We're not seeing that so much anymore. It's becoming a lot more flexible and fluid based on how you best work. Like if you're somebody like me that likes to get up at dark 30 and be at the office by 7, you can now do that because you could be productive.
And Natalie and Mildred, any trends that you're seeing that are going to continue or new ones that are going to continue?
Yeah, it's kind of similar to how you opened it up. I think there's a big, almost like rebound trend of people actually wanting to have that separate of, work life versus home life.
Yeah.
So as much as probably, 5-7 years ago, there was that trend of working from home and working remote. I think right now the pendulum is kind of swinging back, and there's a really big drive and desire to go into a place and have colleagues at work and kind of have that environment.
Yeah. And we're also seeing a lot of, instead of getting a big office for all of your 10 employees and everybody will have their dedicated desk and that's their workstation, much like what a cubicle would have been. They're being set up I would say in a funner way where it's a big shared office. Maybe they set up 6 desks and then the other area is more like a lounge area. And then they kind of take turns, even as to how many times somebody comes into the office during that week, or who will use that fun desk at the corner that week or that day, or who gets to work out of the couch type of thing. So even that, small things like that, but they do amount to a difference.
And Angie, my final question for you. So in 5 years from now, what do you see the future office looking like?
I think the future office is going to have a lot more co-working as part of it. I've worked in the sector long enough where, you used to sort of hide behind the fact that you were in a co-working space. And now you're proud when you're in a co-working space. It says, I'm smart. I'm being conscientious about the dollars that I'm spending. And I'm being flexible so I can let my business grow as it needs to. So I think more and more enterprises are going to embrace co-working and all of the extreme advantages that it offers. And I think we will see more and more co-working spaces closer to people's homes because that's the real advantage there. It helps organizations attract that talent.
Yeah.
And we all know how hard it is to attract the great talent that we all have, Mildred and Natalie included. So I think those are some of the things that we will see.
I love that, because as someone who is really an old soul, I love the people just getting back to the office and meeting each other, especially for Gen Z. That is so important, and younger generations, to get in touch with each other and learn and create just a fascinating conversation about an important issue affecting all generations, the future of work and where people are doing it. Angie O'Grady, Natalie Dehart, and Mildred Antonetti from district offices right here in DC. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight on the Live Zone Primetime.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you for having us.
Thank you.
Take care. All right.